guys, and welcome to a new GTK properties tutorial. Today we are going to talk about something more interesting, and today we are going to talk about child properties again, which means what we are going to use today, it is we are going to install child properties. You already know how what you need to do if you want to install properties for your objects. Now we are going to learn what do you need to know about how to install child properties for your objects. I mean, you know, that relationship which you've learned about objects, or better said, about parents and childs, and so on. The main difference between installing a child property and installing a property, it is that when you are using when you are working with properties, you had to get the objects class, and now for the childs, or for the children's, you need to get also the container class as well. We will see in a moment. So that being said, let's get started. First thing first, you already know we need an enumeration, and now here we are going to create some child properties. So child, or maybe it says property, is the first one, and then child property. Let me see something to be sure. GTK Hidaba, I need it now. Where are you? Right here. So the child property of the GTK Hidaba at this point was 2, the pack type and the position. So we are basically do the same thing. We are going to say a new pack type, and of course child property new position, and of course the last property in the case of when you decide to work with whether with GTK container class install child property or properties, all of them at once, whatever. This should not be the case for you to ask yourself how you do it, because you should already know. If not, then go back to the videos where we install properties, and you will see what I'm talking about. New position will be the last one, because this is what we need to know. We need to mark which is the last property in our case right here. So we have 0, 1, 2, so the last property is 2 now. Now that we create our enumeration, because this is the thing which is important for us, then we can move inside our main function, and here we are going to need 3 new variables. The first one is the G object. Okay. G object class, which will be the object class, and now the new one, the GTK container class, which is the container class. And the next thing which we need, of course, is the G param spec, which is also very important for us now. Well, now that we have those 3 variables, now we can basically create our properties before we decide to install them. For this, we are going to do it right here. Or why not? I'm going to do it before we create our Hidaba, right here, and I'm going to say first thing first, object class. We are going to point it, of course, to G object get class, and of course here we need to pass our Hidaba, because we are interested in our Hidaba. And the next one will be the container class, which also we need to get this time the container class. So GTK container class, class, and of course we pass now this time not the header bar but the object, because we need the container class of the object this time. And now that we have them both, basically we can now create our parameter spec. So p spec, we are going to point it to g param spec int. I'm coming back in a second. And now with the g param spec int, the function which I'm calling it, why I'm calling it int, it is because if we check here, the position is also int, and I'm going to create the same one right now. So basically, what do we need? We need first to give a name to our property. So I'm going to call it new position. The next thing which we need to give a nickname. I'm going to call it position. And after that, the blurb is the description which we need to provide. For this, let me move in the other line. We are going to say the new position property, whatever. And the next which we need to get the values, so the minimum, the maximum values, and the default one. I'm going to say -1 g man. Okay, this is something which I didn't want it. Okay, right here, -1 g max int. It will be the max, and of course the default one, which will be 0, and of course the g parameter param read write, which means it should be read it and write it as well. Now that we created our parameter spec int, we can use this variable to call GTK container class install child properties, but not properties. We are going to call the property GTK container class GTK container class install child property. The first one will be the container class. The second one will be the child property. So this means in this case we are going to use the child property new position. And the next one which we are going to use will be, of course, the last parameter, which will be the parameter spec. Now let us check a little bit this function, because I forgot to introduce you to this function. Let me go a little back to the object hierarchy, GTK container, and here some down here we have right here GTK container install child property. It says it is a function which returns nothing, void, takes 3 parameters: the container, the ID for the property, and the last one, the parameter spec for the property. So basically it starts a child property on a container class. The first parameter, it is the container class, which we got it from a GTK container class macro, which gets information from the object class, and the object class, of course, we got information from the header by itself. So this was the first one. The second one, it has to be the ID property. In this case, the ID, it is the ID which we used here, the child property new position. And the last one, it is the parameter spec which we created. In this case, we are creating a parameter spec int. And once that we install it, let me compile it the way it is. And we have a problem right here, which means I forgot to a semicolon after the enumeration, which is not that bad. and implicit declaration of the GTK container class child property. Yes, property. Write it now. Okay, now let me compile it. And of course we do have another problem, because yes, we need first to create a header bar, and then we can get its information. So I'm going to move it right here. Let me compile it again, and now seems to look fine. Now, because it looks fine, let's see if it's working. We are going to set the position. So GTK container child set, and we are going to set a GTK container which will be our header bar, and the child, it has to be the button 2, let's say, and the property which we are going to use is the property which we created with the gparmspec int, which is the new position. This is the new property which basically we have it, so we are going to pass it right here, new position. And of course, because the position was 0, we are going to use it 1, and for the same case, for the button 1 which was 0, we are going to pass it as 0, null. I hate when happens these things with this laptop, but it happens. Okay, what we did now, we were creating the GTK container we are calling the GTK container add with properties, and we were setting that the button 1 which was open to be at the position 1, and the close button which is the button 2 to be at the position 0. And then after that we decide to create our own property, and we are setting basically that the open button now should be at position 0 and the close should be at the position 1. And as you can see, works fine. To be sure that it's working, let me comment these two calls right here, and you see that button close and open will be the, you see the button, the close one is the first one and the open one is the second one, and after that it become the button 1 will be open the first one and the close the second one. So basically our property, the new property which we created, works fine. You see, open and close. Now guys, there is something important for you to understand. We didn't actually create a new property. It is only I only showed you a way about how you work with installing child's properties. The same things apply for when you are installing properties for your objects. This is the way how you do it. You create an enumeration, and after that you need some information about what are you exactly trying to do. In the case of the properties, you need the object class and the parameter spec, and in case of the child property, you need also the GTK container class as well. After you retrieve this information through those calls like here, you basically create the type of your property. When you're done with it, then you call the function which you needed to install properties for your container and so on, for your child property or for your object property and so on. And once that you install those properties, which better say once that you call GTK container class install child property, you can basically work with your GObject set or GObject get function as well. And for example, for installing property, you know you had to call GObject class install properties, something like this, or property. This was the function which you were calling when you were installing the property you created for your object. In this case, because we are working with a child property, we had to call the GTK container class install child properties. So basically this is how it's working. But like I said, don't you ever rely on that by thinking that you can do this kind of things the way you imagine, because the things which I showed you now, it is the way how you will do it for yourself when you are writing your own widgets. So I want to show you something now before I'm done with the video. I created a small just a small widget, nothing special. The widget, it is called my widget, which is quit button widget. It's nothing special. It is just a widget. You see, once that I'm run it, as you see, I have a button. As you can see, its name, it's called GTK button new. Quit button new. This is the name which I gave for my widget. And of course, its implementation looks like this. The header file, which is important for you. I'm not going to give you too much information. The declaration which you need to do here, begin and end, it means so that your code is compliant with C++ and so on, and this is not the story. Anyway, you need always two structures. The first one, it is the quit button and the quit button class. So basically you need to create a structure for your object and a structure for your object class. And in the object structure, basically it is where the parent is. This means I just derived my object from a GTK button. As you see, this is the parent. Very important to not use a star or something, because you never use a pointer. The same thing goes here as well. Never use a pointer, you don't need it. And here's the GTK button class which I derived, where derives my object which I created, my widget. The next thing in the class, of course, as you can see, it is found the signals which you apply to your widgets. In my case, I said text change, whatever. And then you have some function. You need to get you need a function which is called get type, and of course one which calls new, like GTK button new. In my case is quit button new, and so on. And another user function which you provide for your users and so on. But basically what I want to show you, it is the C source code of the widget, which looks similar to almost all objects in GTK. It's just a short demonstration here, so there are a lot other work to do to understand all these things, but one thing is for sure, all of them looks almost the same. So we need to create a define quit button get private, where you create everything, you declare basically your instance and so on. You need to create a private structure with some information in it from what you want to for the values which you want to keep them there. And of course the enumeration, which I already showed you. This is the enumeration where you create your properties. And then now it is important to know if you are calling a GObject class install property or GObject class install properties for more. So this is the question, if you really need this one. This is not important for you right now to know. And then define with code, we are going to talk. Anyway, the most important thing which you need to know about properties, because this is everything what I want to show you now, it is these four functions. Every widget, every object has these four functions. So these four functions are functions which are very important when you are creating your own widgets, and these four functions you find them all the time in implementation on the widgets which already are provided for you. So the first one is the init function for your object, so object init, the class init, and then the set property and get property. Basically in the class init, here it is the whole work which you need to know, because here you create all those properties So this means before you create it, you need to find out some classes. Like in this case, I need the object class and the widget class of the quit button class, and then very important, you see here those set property and get property functions which you need to create them are those functions which they need to override the standard function set properties and get properties as well, so that when you call gobject set and gobject get to do what your function does and not to do what the standard function did. And of course, here's are the installing property where I created a parameter spec of type string in this example, and then I'm calling the GTK class install property and so on. And I give a name also. You see GTK widget class set CSS name with name class. So basically, when you create a CSS file, empty file, yes, let's say style.css. Now that you have the CSS file, you can basically say quit. You see, you have it right here, quit button, the whole information. And of course, you give something like background color, red or whatever, and you are fine. Basically, this is the way how you create your CSS file for your widgets. And of course, it's not working now because I think I didn't load the CSS right. I mean style.css. What do I have? I have also style CSS. It should work. I have no time now to check it because this is not important right now. The important thing is only that you know that. And then after that, you have your init function for your widget, and of course those two functions, which are the set property and the get properties. Here, as you already know, you should already know about the G parameter spec, the G values, and so on, and those things we already talk about them. And at the time when it's coming, you will know exactly what they are, and it will be much easier for you to understand at that point when you create your own widgets. But until you create your own widget, it's still a long journey because you need to learn a lot of things. And of course, here we have a nice warning macro, which basically informs you all the time when you are trying to set a bad property for your object. I don't know if I go back now to the GTK container, it is right here and says this macro should be used to emit a standard warning about unexpected property in set child property and get child property. So basically, if you call this one right now, like me I'm doing here, let me go back to our closed project, to our child property, and let me call this function here, this macro here. I'm going to pass the object, which is the header bar in our case, the property ID. The property ID, it is what we created. I want to show you only something. And the last one will be the parameter spec, so that you get familiar. This macro should be called only when fails something. I'm not going to call when fails, I'm going to call it right now. And as you can see, you get warning, whatever, and says invalid child property ID 2 for the new position of the type gem. You see, even it is not wrong, it is right, but it gives you a warning ID because I treat it like a warning. You should call only if it's failed, if it's false, something like if, I don't know, it's not new position, whatever. Then, because it is not a 6, then you call this or something like this because you don't have it. Okay, so in this kind of situation, basically you call this macro to inform the user that it tries to work with an invalid property, whatever. Okay, now what I want to show you, because I said that is wrong, you see I was using the say enumeration, which means it is working because I'm not quite working with child property new position, like maybe you think I'm working with this because this is at position 2. And if we go back to the GTK header bar, and now you will understand why I'm telling you why you should never work like I did, but you should know how you install properties. Let me go back. Property, not here, sorry guys. We need the implementation of the GTK header bar. So GTK header bar C master, and once that we have it, let me show you something. The enumeration, I'm interested only about the enumeration. Where are those enumerations? Right here, you see, child properties 0, pack type and position 0, 1, 2. So it's working because I use the same like here, because if now I'm changing to whatever a new property, and then now this one becomes position 3, and we get this position, now we get a warning. Watch, it's not working, it's not gonna work. Wow, you see, it says GTK header bar invalid child property are these 3. The new position of the child parameter is header bar. You see, it's not working. Of course it's not working, and we get 2 because we have 2 calls right here, 1 and 2, and it's not working because we are doing something bad, something wrong. It was working because we had only 2 properties, and we basically use the value 2 of the enumeration from the original enumeration, which was created during the creating of the or the starting of the widget, and this is wrong. So never use something like this in your programs where you create your own enumeration and then create your own properties and so on, because it will fail and it will not work. I wanted to show you how it's working, just to make you familiar with this. What do you really need? You need to, when you create your own widget, and then in the source file of your widget, where you should have a class init function. In the class init function, here goes all those calls, and here you create your property, and also here you are going to include your properties enumeration and so on. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.